Welcome back to another episode of Beekeeping Buddies. I'm Steven.
I'm Luke.
Oh, man. I'm sorry, guys. It's been a hot minute. We have been busy around the bee yard, and it's been hot.
It's been hot or rainy, or major storms came through. There was a lot of calls that came in during the major storm stuff. I was out of town for it. I was actually up in Wisconsin and didn't even know there was a big storm here until I got some calls from some of my bee customers that said, "Hey, are your bees okay? Are my bees okay?" And I was like, why would they not be okay? It's a beautiful day in Wisconsin.
No, yeah, I don't know if where you are in across the country, the world, but the central part of the U.S., central part of Illinois got significant rain over a 72-hour period. There were areas within an hour of us that got 12 inches of rain in 72 hours, which is a lot of rain anywhere you live, and especially for central Illinois.
Surprisingly, down by the river, it didn't really raise the river all that much. It's barely back, like it was down. Now it's barely at the edge of floodplain, and we'll be headed back down here pretty soon.
Yep. So like it hadn't rained for a bit, and at an inch a day for 2 or 3 days, we could have, it just all goes away in all the farm crops right now. But when you start pushing 6, 8, 10 inches of rain, you're going to start seeing some runoff there.
Yeah, Bloomington, which is just south of us, they got drenched. Yep. They had major flooding, major issues for houses and stuff. So that was unpleasant. But also the apiary, it's a busy time of year.
It is, and it's probably my least favorite time of the year because along with a ton of rain comes a ton of humidity. And I was helping a buddy build a project out in the garage. We were not in direct sunlight. We were in the garage, shaded, and it was no less than 95% humidity for the 3 days we worked on the project. It was just so thick and so humid, and trying to be out in hives in any kind of that weather is just absolutely miserable.
And then the mosquitoes are rough. The mosquitoes are still rough. I think I swatted 7 or 8 mosquitoes on me today, which is...
Sir, you live by the river.
I do live by the river. However, they usually don't stick onto my bee suit. They usually will just, like once I take my bee suit off, then I'll notice them.
Oh, yeah?
I had them on my bee suit, on my veil.
Yeah.
And like one of them was on my veil, and I was shocked at, like, hey, what is this? This is not a bee. And so I reach up, and it squishes because it's a mosquito. Squishes really easy. And I was like, oh, mosquitoes. And then Dad's blacksmith, and so he had all of his... So I went and checked all of his blacksmithing buckets. And mosquito larvae everywhere floating in the buckets. So they all got kicked over.
Yep.
They can get refilled.
But what else we been doing around the yard? I had sort of late fall or late summer, early fall bee check. I did vaporized oxalic acid treatments on both my personal hives at the house and also the club hives and the club hives that I have out there, and one of the students that's out there. All told, I think I did probably something in the neighborhood of 20 hives for oxalic acid treatments. Almost all of those were double deeps. Thank you for lending me or providing me with a resupply of my oxalic acid from your
giant bag of it,
50-pound box of supply that you have for all of the customers that you service.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But in terms of this year's beekeeping, a couple of episodes ago, you may have heard me talking about how I was really disappointed that my spring hives that had done really well really petered off, apparently did not requeen well, and basically all up and disappeared, which was disappointing. But at the same time, I caught a swarm, I had a split or two, I had a cutout or two. I currently have 5 strong hives in the yard. They all got treated. They all had minor inspections, pulling top frames, 1 or 2 frames in the middle, great honey caps on top.
When you pull those 1 or 2 frames in the middle, what were you looking for?
I'm assessing overall from my landing boards. My landing boards were busy. I wasn't expecting low populations. So I pull those out. I can look down the hive. They were, in fact, well populated. I was looking to see what their status for honey was, because back on July 4th, a lot of those were light. You know, I had honey supers on, I had taken those. So these had great honey caps on the tops, you know, out of a deep frame, probably the top 2 to 3 inches was honey cap, and that rainbowed all the way around. If the first frame didn't have anything notable, I'd pull the second frame, and all of those had open brood eggs, things like that.
I look for activity on the landing board. One, just because to see who's coming and going. Make sure there's no fighting. Make sure it's not nothing weird going on. If they're wrestling on the landing board, it's not a great sign. There's probably they're fighting somebody off. Somebody's trying to rob them. That kind of stuff.
There's a lot of activity, a lot of pushing and shoving. I had on 2 hives. I think I have almost all of my hives still had an entrance reducer of some sort on them. I just run mouse guards all year round. I know that people say, "Oh, you make them bigger, make them smaller." It's not what happens out in the wild, you know. And our cutouts have really taught me that, you know, when you got the quarter size hole in the side of the house or the 1/4 inch slit in the side of the house, that's all they get, and they support great looking hives.
I like mouse guards on mine, and so anything that's wooden gets a mouse guard all year. That doesn't come off. If they die, I'm taking the hive apart anyway and knocking everything out. But the mouse guards, I screw them down and they just leave them on. And actually, we were pre-gaming and I showed you the one. They didn't like how big that mouse guard was, and they propylized the outside non-using
3 inches.
Yeah,
2 inches.
Yeah,
inches.
all the holes were closed.
My hives were super propylized. I'm talking a thick, gooey, like this ain't a little bit, right? Like we are packing it on for winter. We're getting stuff sealed up. Like we know the sun's getting shorter. We can tell we're getting ready for winter.
It feels so strange to say we're getting ready for winter, but it really is just around the corner.
I mean,
October 15th is our freeze date for Illinois,
and we're at the end of August here. So
yeah. So it's just sneaks right up on you.
Other things we've been doing, I think you took hives out to buckwheat again this year.
It did. They were real happy about it. They didn't have quite as much buckwheat planted this year as they did last year. They used to plant in between the corn rows with buckwheat, and for some reason they didn't do that. However, they have a weed out there called smartweed, which I didn't know anything about it. The guy that was showing me around, real talkative fellow, was talking about. I was like, I was commenting, "Hey, I wish there was more buckwheat. I wish you guys had planted more." And he said, "Oh, but it's all been taken over by smartweed." And smartweed, I've never heard of it. So I go and look it up. It's super used by honeybees and bumblebees. So it's a weird.
You think you'll pull a honey crop off it?
Yeah, I put 6 hives out there. I threw 3 or 4 supers on of the 6. So some of them needed some help building up. So I just gave them space and said, "Hey, go for it." They almost always build up over there. It lowers my density over here too. I probably have too many hives in that yard, in my main apiary yard. Moving those 6 away doesn't make much of a difference, but they tend to do really well year
percentage wise. That's
year.
Probably a pretty low percentage.
Yeah, and they do really well year after year in that location.
That's also a great time to talk about, you know, what are you doing with honey supers right now? Obviously, if you're going to go out and pick up a fall crop of some sort that's specific to your area, certainly put honey supers on. I'm looking at rebalancing anything that I had still on. I have 3 honey supers that are full and capped, still out at the apiary. I have nothing at the house. I have 2 small single deep hives that are the result of bring homes from cutouts. They won't make it as they sit. However, they have okay population. They'll continue to build for the next month, in which case they'll probably put them in a population density that's sufficient for winter, but they won't have an opportunity to pull stores any kind of honey. It could mean I could feed them. I've got supers of honey that are sitting there, so part of me feels like instead of trying to bust out all of the extraction equipment for another 50, 60 pounds, which I don't really need with the 400 plus pounds I got sitting in the kitchen already, I'll just move those over on top of my deep and overwinter in a deep and medium. And a medium of 40 pounds of honey going to be enough for a smaller colony.
Yeah,
to overwinter.
A medium's usually when I extract a medium, I'll get between 20 and 30.
30, yeah.
And that is enough for a small colony to make it. I've overwintered here in the Midwest in a deep and a medium, and they do just fine. Now, the problem is that you got to take that medium off early next spring so that the queen doesn't lay it full, because 100% she'll lay it full of eggs.
I had that problem this year, coming into this year, because I had quite a few medium supers that got left on for a deep and a medium, and then I got to be mid-spring, and I'm trying to add, so I add a deep to it, and then I try to move the medium up on top of the deep with a queen excluder, because obviously it's been laid by now. And then depending on how successful I am with that, maybe I get the queen on the wrong side. That did happen. Maybe I get some open brood up there, and they think now the queen's in the bottom box. There's a deep that may or may not be drawn, and then there's open brood at the top with a queen excluder. Well, that's one way to sort of kind of make a split. So then they start drawing queen cells on the top half. So that can be a relative beekeeper maintenance nightmare in terms of trying to manage. But at the end, by the time we got around to June, I had everything sorted out. It wasn't the smoothest, but
yeah, it just takes a while to fix
manipulations and staying on top of, moving stuff around. And
it is an argument for having like standardized equipment. I'm just all running deeps. I'm all running mediums. I don't. In fact, my equipment's so far from standardized. I've got all kinds of types, but I like beekeeping, and I think the part of beekeeping that's often overlooked is the rebalancing and feeding stuff back, like knowing when to feed stuff back, which is right now. You feed stuff back, and then also manipulating your equipment so that you have the honeybee, so you don't have, or when you run into a medium and a deep, and you need to move another super on, just manipulating that to make sure that they handle that well. Or making splits. It's a good opportunity to make a split too.
And we'll also be talking about coming up here in September, our next, either the next episode or the one after that, we'll be talking about how to make evaluations for fall and whether or not you're gonna make it, and whether or not you need to be doing some newspaper combines and stuff like that, where
the earlier
you're going to be doing manipulations to try to get weak colonies in shape to make something that's going to survive.
Yeah, that'd be a good topic.
We also finally got your Chillicothe bee ordinance passed, I understand.
Oh my goodness. We did. It did not pass the way I wanted it to. There was some legal nonsense that happened in that process. Basically, we've gone from not allowing honeybees to allowing them, and it's a $50 fee a year, and you have to have a fence, and it has to be 10 feet away from the fence, and you can have 2 hives per lot, and there's only 12 beekeepers allowed in Chillicothe currently.
Only 12? I missed that part.
Yeah, they wanted to limit it to 12 permits per year.
Well, it feels like that's all. I mean, at least you got it started, and we can make ordinance revisions.
That was my statement at the end, was thanks for starting it, and we'll be back in 3 years to let you guys know that it's not an issue and you need to fix it the rest of the way.
I guess after having taken honey in July and somewhat in August, you were getting around to distributing all of your honey back out to your customers.
I was honey claws today.
Honey claws? How much honey was in the sleigh?
It was about 400 pounds ish, depending on location. Some locations with 4 hives had maybe about 70 pounds, and I had a couple hives that were just single hives. They had between 30 and 50. It really depends site to site.
Because you're keeping it all separate per customer. It's not like
absolutely.
You're guaranteeing, hey, you're going to get 50 pounds off each hive. Like
right.
It's not written into your contract that way.
Nope. In fact, it says, hey, if it's a bad year, it's a bad year, and I'm sorry that happens.
And most of the customer supers then stay probably within your possession, I guess, or
they do. Right now, I've got a super on a customer that I delivered a 5-gallon bucket to, so it's about 50 pounds. And that was the one that I forgot to put frames in, and they got cut comb as well.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
But not this super. This super has all the frames in it. It's in a heavily tree tree heavy area.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of interested in getting it sampled. I did work with Penn State University this year and then Jonah DNA. So I'm using both of them as a comparison side by side. So Jonah DNA is like a website, not a sponsor, website that you can go get your honey analyzed on, and it'll look at the pollen samples in there and tell you what % of pollen is the highest in your sample.
Just one, or do you get like top 5?
You get like top. It breaks it down into like top 10, and it's all the different percentages. And Penn State University does the same thing. And Penn State, it takes 8 weeks is the issue. So I just got mine back from May, that my first spring honey that I pulled in May.
How much you got to send them?
2 50 milliliter vials, and for Penn State, one 50 milliliter vial for Jonah DNA, and it's 130 I think for Penn State and 100 for Jonah. But I haven't gotten any of my samples back from Jonah yet. I got to call him because it's been a while.
What were they saying?
What's that?
What were they saying?
They haven't said anything. They just said they got them.
Yeah, I thought you said you got some samples back.
Oh, yeah, I got some samples back from Penn State. So the Penn State ones said that serviceberry was my main...
serviceberry?
My main pollen.
What is serviceberry? I've never heard of
bush.
It's a bush?
They make red berries.
Okay.
And little white flowers, and it's a bush, and my guess is
it wasn't like Dutch white clover or...
Dutch white clover was in there, but it was not the top one.
Like...
serviceberries,
honeysuckle, black locust.
Honeysuckle was like in 3%. There was no honey locust.
What?
That's what blew my mind. No honey locust at all. And then the library one also had serviceberry, had clover in it, had elm in it, had rose in it.
Like so rosebush rose?
Rosebush rose. So it's a really interesting look, because I've been telling people for years, look how light this honey is. This has clearly got like black locust in it, and it's real. It's a real light.
So these were real light spring honeys.
Real light spring honeys, both of them. Same. Taken exactly, extracted at the same time.
How much are we willing to wager that our pollen sources equate nectar sources?
Not well for black locust. It should be high, because black locust creates a lot of pollen.
I would have said that, yes.
But
I wouldn't necessarily consider a rosebush to be a high nectar producer.
So the rosebush was like 5% of their pollen.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it made the top 10 though.
Elm was the 20% of their pollen.
So that's a major pollen producer for early spring, but
I don't think
as far as I know,
nectar.
yeah, I don't know it as a nectar source.
Actually, I'm going to Google it as we see here. So yeah, I would guess that largely nectar sources and pollen sources are somewhat related, but don't significantly don't always overlap.
How about dandelion?
There was some dandelion in mine, not very much, and less in the library sample. So there was stuff there. Maybe we'll talk about it next. I didn't print it out for Steve to look at. I should have, but maybe we'll talk about it next show, maybe we can get Jonah DNA group here to talk about it as a topic, because they do all kinds of DNA analysis. The Jonah group does.
That sounds like a great opportunity to have another guest. It's been a hot minute since we've had a guest on the show. We also did another cutout. These are always fun to talk about and relive. This was an hour north. When you have an hour transit time to get to your location, it significantly impacts, if you're going to be on the job for 2 hours and you got 2 hours of drive time, all of a sudden, the amount of time that you have to allocate to a job has now doubled. And that can be a challenge for dollars per hour cost breakdown.
Just as a quick callback, elms do not produce nectar.
There you go.
According to a couple sites.
Was it just the AI overview?
Mm-mm.
That's good.
Although the UK says that they produce nectar, so who knows?
Who knows?
We'll have to. Well, I'll do some more digging on that one too.
This was like a 1920s 2-story brick, nice house.
3-story.
2-story with a walk-up attic. Yep.
Yeah, walk-up attic.
Yep. And this was...
Which was painful, by the way.
This is the I'm going to guess the south-facing side of the house, although it was heavily shaded with a large tree. It was a nice 2-foot overhang on this house, as architecturally, it was the style for those houses back in that time, sort of an arts and crafts style house. When you looked at it, you sort of surmised that perhaps they were in the wall or attic space ceiling of the third floor.
Well, I FLIR'd it, and the FLIR came back with a hot spot on the third floor in that corner, roughly where they were coming in. And the hot spot was not a small hot, like it was a 92-degree hot spot.
He showed me the photo of the FLIR, and I would have agreed that it definitely did match the heat signature of a hive behind drywall that we have seen many times before. However, when we showed up the first time to do the cutout as an interior cutout, I had looked at the outside, and then I was standing on the inside, and I was doing mental math as to where the entrance of the hive was in relation to the window that I was standing next to, and the math did not math.
Yeah, and which was something I said when I first looked at it. I was like, "This is a big difference. This is a big distance for them to walk." We've seen them walk
usually
30 feet, right? The one we did the cutout, and it was the hole was 6 feet off the ground, and the hive was 30 feet up in that wall.
Yeah, but that was sort of vertically all in the same.
It was, but it was still
same cavity, same stud wall.
So we've seen them walk a distance before.
But this was the entrance was at the 2 feet below the peak, which was all of 30 feet off the ground, and the area in the drywall would have been 6 or 8 feet below that, and 4 or 5 feet off to the side, depending on which, right or left.
Yeah, it would have been a long distance for them to walk.
And so the math wasn't math in there. And so looking at it again, I'm like, I will bet all of the lunch money that they're in the soffit, that 2-foot soffit right there, and not on the inside. And to verify, we sent Luke up into the crawl space above the walk-up attic, and he crawled across the rat board that's a 1x3 on his hands and knees, all the way to the other end of the house.
All the way with a headlamp on.
With a headlamp. And drilled a hole through the outside rafter and stuck the camera in to see that the hive was, in fact, outside.
Yep. And then got stung in the face because they're attracted to the light.
The headlamp sits on your forehead.
Yeah. So they're attracted to the light, which I wasn't worried about the stings in the face. I was worried about stings in the eyeballs. So after removing the headlamp, crawled all the way back, which sucks on your knees. That is just because it wasn't big enough to stand up.
There had definitely been a thing for like a 10-year-old.
Until they got stung in the face.
Until they get stung in the face. So standing there looking at it, we said, hey, this is going to be a lift job. This is outside scaffold range. And lift sort of complicates the job because you got to do obviously it adds more cost because they're not like it's anywhere between $400 and $800 for a day / weekend, and the logistics of having to get to the lift location, pick it up, which is not going to be in the same neighborhood as your cutout ever. So then there's additional drive time from there to your site. Setup went pretty smooth. The lift itself was a 35-footer. It seemed like it was lighter weight than the 50-footer.
Super. It was. And it shook more.
Yep.
The 50-footer had a little wiggle to it. The 35-footer, once you got up there, if you were stable, it was fine.
Yeah.
But you really,
as soon as you moved around, if you were shifting your weight because you were in the basket or whatever.
Yeah, you had some wiggle to it, which as long as I didn't think about it, it was fine. But as soon as my monkey brain said, hey, by the way, you're up 34 feet and this is wiggling.
If you're looking down at the ground while you're shifting around in the basket, it becomes a real it's an
unpleasant experience.
There's a lot of motion sickness there. If you're looking up at the eave overhead, then it's fixed and your body sort of your knee, you kind of do the whole chicken head stable thing, where your feet underneath you are kind of compensating and the building next to you isn't swaying, so it's not a problem. and this was, I had specifically parked it where it was almost straight up, had not a lot of reach out and lean with that setup, and partially because I was concerned about the reach given how high we had to get. But if we'd had a 50-footer in there, the tail swing on a 50-footer would not have fit between the house and the fence. So it's sort of
we had a bunch of kids there too that were interested in what we were doing. The neighbor went and got drinks and snacks and sat down in their covered area, in the covered porch with a screen on it, and watched us.
There's no screen on that porch.
The one next door?
Yep.
There was no screen?
Nope.
Oh.
I walked up. I showed him.
In my head, there was a screen on it, and so
when we were banding up comb,
yeah,
I took one of the banded up sections of comb with girls still crawling on it, and walked it over to them and was like, "Hey, have you ever seen honeycomb? Like as it?"
Oh, I didn't even bother because in my brain,
just walked up to the side of the porch and just handed just put it over the railing, and they oohed and awed and pulled the camera out, took some videos, and the 4-year-old came over and stuck her nose within inches of it.
Yeah, they're not afraid of them until they get stung.
Yeah,
and the neighbor kid did get stung. I made them all step back, and as soon as because they were largely okay. They're a little rough on you while you were up there because Steve goes up and usually does the original cuts, and then he does like some initial vacuuming until he's had enough, and then he'll come down and I'll go up and do some work. It's
the initial when you're getting into it, because all the guards for the hive, and then like this was completely packed. This had been there at least all year, maybe more, and it was a confined space, right? It was basically a 2-foot by 2-foot area of soffit that they were in, and it's completely full. So you have no way to get started with the cutout, right? You can't get a tool, you can't get a knife up at the top. So you kind of have to. We can call it the Harvey cutout tool, right? It's a knife edge, but it's on a 90 degree to a pole, and you can shove that up through
blacksmith by Dad.
Yeah, shove that up through the space of two combs, but again, you can't vac into the bee space between two combs, so you just kind of shove it up in there. And if there's girls in there, they get all pissy.
Yeah, they're not pleasant.
And then you kind of rotate and slide and cut and try to get that first piece out. And then once you get the first piece out, you get the second piece out, and usually you got to get probably 4 or 5 pieces out before you can get anything bigger that's easier to use. And this was the first time we cut off a sloped. Usually we're on
sloped roof,
a ceiling, a flat ceiling or a flat floor or something, or flat wall. They've adhered it to the flat wall, and everything's nice and square. But this was a sloped roof, so the tops of all of the combs, obviously the combs hang vertically, but the tops are, we're at a 45-degree angle. It was like a 12-12 pitch roof.
Yeah, it was. And I think this time I only got stung 6 or 7 times. Well, it wasn't that many. It wasn't that bad. I forgot to zip up my veil, and so at some point I had 6 or 7 bees inside my veil, and that wasn't pleasant.
So they lit up one of my wrists. They lit up my left wrist on the outside of the coat, and as soon as the bananas show up, then all of a sudden they just wanted to keep hitting my left arm through the suit.
Also, that banana smell sticks around, and I forgot. So I was checking hives today and got lit up. The first hive I opened up, I got lit up because I had my smoker on. And I thought, wow, these guys are usually real calm. I don't know what's going on. I did a cutout in my jacket.
Yeah.
And I haven't washed it.
And so, I could tell they were stinging the jacket. They're stinging the wrist area. I had duct taped the wrists after they got up underneath the sleeves on the wrists, and so you can kind of feel it's kind of like a little tingly, right? It's not a full on sting. It's just right there.
Yeah, they're just touching you.
Just touching you. It's enough to tell you they're there, and it's going to be a problem. And so I needed a break because you're also standing right where they want to fly, like at the entrance, and so all the activity was right at your head.
Well, and as soon as you open it up like that, and as soon as the honey starts falling, because I'm on the ground watching, and you can see the first couple combs, the honey just kind of
rains
down on everything. And honey's slick. Everyone thinks, oh, honey's sticky, and it is. It's sticky when it's real thin, but when it's thick, if it creates any kind of thickness, you'll slip on it.
Yep.
I have slipped onto my butt and busted my butt,
and it's
from honey.
And the problem, like, I try to keep everything that I touch as clean as possible because, again, it's slick, and so I'm constantly trying to keep my hands, even though I'm wearing nitrile gloves, I'm trying to keep everything wiped down, and the basket's sticky, and then you turn around and you get it stuck on the back of your suit, and
it's everywhere.
I come down, Luke goes up, and I'm down on the ground taking a break, and I've had my veil off. We're not anywhere close to the action, but apparently there was enough banana smell on me that they come up and nail me right in the nose.
As soon as you dropped that first bucket,
yeah,
they got mad.
Yeah.
And they followed the bucket down, and there was robbers this time. We got a full bee vac, a full.
Yep.
And I was vacuuming up whoever.
Yep.
The next day though, because we ran out of gas, not like physically, it was into the day. We started at like 2 or 3.
We left at 2. We didn't get on site until 3:30. By the time we got the lift picked up.
Yep, it was 1 hour's time to bees. So
and we I think we were broke down off the site by about 5.
Yeah. And
then the thunderstorm rolled through, including the tornado.
Yeah.
And we're not exaggerating.
Yeah, it missed us probably I would guess a couple miles.
Yeah.
We driving home, we could see the cloud formation where it was.
So yeah, and it started to sprinkle on us as we were packing up. And they wanted us to normally we shy away from having to repair the stuff that we pull out because it adds more time and difficulty to the job. And in this case, they just wanted to write a check. So we threw another amount on it to get it all finished up. But that meant we had to go back on Saturday morning to get it patched up, which, again, on site for only about an hour.
It's an hour drive up, an hour drive back, on site for an hour.
And then the difficulty of the lift place isn't open on Saturday, so you can't return the lift on Saturday. So then you got to make a third trip up. So hindsight, probably need to do all that in one day during the week where you can pick up the lift at 9 o'clock in the morning and return it at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. So it makes it for a long day.
They closed at 4.
Yeah.
Is the other issue, which
the gate wouldn't be open, so we couldn't just drop off the lift in the driveway or whatever. So
overall, I mean, another thing is that there's not a whole lot of people in this area that'll do that. They just they'll do cutouts. But
it's one thing to set up a step ladder in somebody's bedroom, and cut out some drywall and vac out some bees, but it's another thing to have to get a lift into a side yard and be 30 feet up in the air. A lot of logistics.
Yeah, and 2 people are really required for something like that.
You gotta have a ground man.
Yeah,
unless you're gonna be doing a lot of up down on that lift, and
it sucks.
It was a small basket. You didn't have a lot of room for activities. I kind of rig up. They make an extension tool storage thing for our baker scaffold that I bought, and I've always rigged that up to hang off the railing, and it's a must for having someplace to put the bee vac and set a tool down, set a hive tool on or a knife on, but while your hands are working with something else. Otherwise you get no place, like the only place to set stuff is on the floor, and you're constantly bending over,
or you put it on the brick and it falls off.
Yeah.
Or you leave it up there, like the church still has a hive tool on
it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although that was probably acquired by the roofers that were going to have to be up there to fix the roof.
Yeah.
Which is why we were called in the first place, is because the roofers were there doing guttering and roofing. But I guess that's not our last one for the year either. I guess we've been getting some more calls.
Yeah,
I'm not looking forward to having to cut through a concrete foundation on a solid concrete communications building.
They want to just their solution for that is they're going to caulk it themselves.
Spray foam it closed?
No, they're going to caulk it themselves, and they have their entrance, and hoping it pushes their entrance to the other side.
Okay, sure.
And that's what I said. I said, okay, that's a cheaper solution than
That
us.
was definitely
The one you're not looking
option.
for that I haven't told you about is one that is a 60-plus-year-old house that has plaster inside.
We've done plaster ones before.
Yeah. So
I mean,
they're coming in through the transition between the brick and the siding.
Yeah,
And
where they always are.
Where they always are, and they're probably in the ceiling. Tomorrow I'll be going to that with a FLIR to see if it lies to me again.
In the news is where we usually talk about some bee-related news that we found. I guess there was a big study that was wrapped up on over 1,700 different, was it samples? Samples from over 100 different apiaries. They were tracking disease progression through
the seasons,
from all of these vary. So this has got quite a few data points in it. Probably statistically significant.
Yeah, and interesting, it's pretty close to our temperature range, too. It's South Korea. It might be a little bit warmer than what we have here, but it's pretty close as far as across the world. We're pretty even and they see winters similar to ours.
I guess the big takeaway from this was all of the diseases that you have heard of as beekeepers, your chalk broods,
Black queen cell virus,
sac brood, and
EFB, nosema.
Nosema is the other big one I was thinking of. That all, like, you may have heard of all of those. Turns out primarily probably found in the spring and early parts of the year. Why is they're hypothesizing that the mite spread diseases. The big ones are deformed wing virus and
it's really acute paralysis syndrome.
Yeah, which is
acute paralysis syndrome.
Yeah, which is what the researcher was talking about for our summer get together.
Looks like EFB, and really hard to tell the difference.
So, and deformed wing virus, if you've ever had really high mite loads, you'll have seen that one. They're outcompete the other ones for veracity, right? Like they spread much more.
They're much more virulent.
Yeah.
The fidelity of the hive is pushed by those instead of your other ones. They're not healthy enough to have the other ones is what I think it boils down to. And it may be EFB, but again, this really acute paralysis syndrome that causes something that looks just like EFB. It also lowers your mite counts weirdly because there's not enough surviving brood.
Because as the brood dies off, then they open up those. They can smell it, and they open up those cells and scrape out the goo, and therefore the mites don't have a chance to reproduce.
I usually see them eat the heads. They'll eat the bees' heads to get that protein back.
There was also a study talking about pesticide shedding that occurs through the hive. It's a fancy way of saying how do hives deal with pesticides that make it into the hive. The short version is because the queens are being fed royal jelly, and royal jelly is actually produced by the other bees, any of the feed that those other bees take in has to be metabolized into an output that is fed to the queen. That metabolism process helps filter out the pesticides.
Yeah, and it'll kill the bee if it's toxic enough, right? It just kills the bee.
So it's the classic, food taster before you give it to the king.
Yeah, royal test. She's got built-in royal tasters.
Royal tasters. It turns out if you keep increasing the pesticide load in the hive, artificially or otherwise, so that it does, in fact, impact on the queen, and she is dosed with pesticide, she will pass that pesticide off onto her eggs and sort of purge the pesticide out through the eggs that she's laying, which is going to negatively impact the eggs that she lays, which is why overall you're going to see, even if you don't have the immediate die off of the alive bees right now, you'll still see a trail on effect of the pesticide.
I wonder if they can smell it, and I wonder if they would do a queen replacement. You know how hey, you're laying bad eggs.
Yep.
And you're struggling and you need to be replaced. That'd be interesting to see if that would be a knock-on effect from all of that. I know it happened in the hives that I'm managing for people when they sprayed Roundup on everything.
Yeah.
All 3 hives replaced the queen, and all 3 queens, strangely enough, this year at least, all 3 queens requeened really well, and they're all doing great now. But they struggled there. I thought they were dead. I'd written them off. I was really upset because I thought they were dead. In fact, I remember coming back and being angry because they didn't tell me what they were doing. And now I can't really complain. It'll be interesting to get it. They'll have to burn that field. And those hives are right in the middle of that field. So that'll be interesting. See what happens or how they approach that. Hopefully they'll keep me involved this time, or not.
Yeah, I mean, they might start there and spread out from there, or they just you station somebody there with a backpack sprayer, and as soon as it rolls up in the area, spray it down. And
I'd prefer that they start there and roll and go out from there.
Honeybee Hotline is where we take questions and try to answer questions that come in from various sources. One of the big ones right now is, as we're moving into fall, what are we doing for our fall preparations?
Yeah, what do we do? There's a lot of panic. Everyone worries at this time of year, and I can understand, right? It's kind of your last ditch effort to.
Usually, it's about now when you notice that you swarmed back in July and then didn't requeen well in August because it's been about a month.
It's about September is when I get most of the calls for queens.
And you're like, hey, I don't see a lot of brood in my hive. And then you start looking, you're like, I have no brood in my hive. And you're like, oh, I must not have a queen. Yeah. And then you're like, what do I do now?
Every year we say that I should be raising queens. I raised queens this year. I am out of queens again. I have 1 queen left.
I thought you just said you were prepping queens because you were getting requests for.
I did.
You had mini mating nukes.
You
want to tell the people about your mini mating nukes?
My mini nukes did okay. It had about a 70% take rate on them, and I've sold all the queens out of them.
And as soon as you take the queens out,
as soon as you take the queen out, if you don't replace her, they all leave
with a new queen cell.
Yeah, with something. They're like, I'm out.
Are you putting queen cells in them?
I was putting
queen cells, or were you hatching and then putting a virgin in there?
I put queen cells into them. Now, I bet if I put queen pheromone, they make queen pheromone in a little sticks
or in your little alcohol jar.
Yeah, like these sticks they're pretty. They stick around for a long time.
You don't think you can make your own? Some Q-tips and your alcohol, your queen
maybe
juice?
I might be able to, but it evaporates pretty fast. So, but if you don't put something in there, they abandon. Even they leave the brood. I had frames of brood that they were like, yeah.
If you've never seen a mini mating nuke, it's
1 beer cooler size. Like 1 beer. You could put 1 beer into your mini mating.
I was going to say, it's a little styrofoam box. I was going to say it's half the size of a lunchbox, but nobody knows what a lunchbox looks like these days. So it does really
fits one can of a beverage basically, and they have 3 little frames in it.
Yep.
And a feeding area.
little spot in the back for some feed.
And they draw all your comb in the back with a spot with the feed.
Yep.
And that's kind of annoying, but that's what they do. And I painted all the entrances different colors. And like I said, this is my first year of trying them. You put 2 cups.
You've had them for like
years. Yeah. You put 2 cups of bees in there. And I left them in there in the dark for a couple days with fondant, fondant that I'd made, and they stuck around. Closed entrance, they stuck around at least until I had them sitting here on the counter inside, and the bees were cleaning everything up. So there's piles of debris that they had pulled out and just let drop to the bottom. And one day, and I was telling my 2 workers about it, and my 17-year-old had helped paint them and put stuff together because I had them repainted, and I told them, I had loaded them and they're all ready, and I was keeping them in controlled temperatures just so less work for them and so they can get used to calling a place home. And he walks in and opens the lid on one, because he walks into the house. Well, because we'd stopped for something. He walked into the house. He's like, "Oh, look at him!" And he walked over and pops the lid off. So Like, yeah, 15 bees go flying out. Oh my gosh, there's bees in there. I'm like, yep, 17-year-old moment where brain wasn't connected. And we're like, we were just talking about this. He's like, I didn't realize that you were talking about the ones on your kitchen counter. I'm like, yeah.
There you go. What are you doing with supers right now? I know we talked about it a little earlier in the episode. I'm probably not going to extract the last couple I have hanging around. I'm going to use them for balancing people that need a little help coming into winter here.
So I will put, like we talked about, I'll put an empty, maybe we didn't talk about it. If it's a single deep, because I have some single deeps that just, they were either late splits or leftover cutouts, stuff like that. If they're single deep, I'll put a empty super on it just to give them more space, because goldenrod is still coming in. Sedum's just barely starting to bloom. A lot of the asters will start to bloom. A lot of those things have high ash content, so it's not great for the bees because the ash is like an undigestible, and it can cause them to have to poop. But if we have a mild winter, then they'll poop fine. And if we don't have a mild winter, then
we got the super El Nino coming, man.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Is that cold or hot?
It's mild for us.
Okay,
it's going to be wet on the West Coast, but should be mild for us.
Okay, so I'll put those on, and then I throw a few on because I have requests for goldenrod honey.
Oh.
And
stinky
sock honey. So I throw a few on just
dude.
So
we
I
can't
have
sell cut comb, and you're telling me you're going to collect goldenrod honey,
dude. I sold 100 pounds of goldenrod honey last year.
Whatever, man. All right,
and I sold it at a premium. I charged $20 for goldenrod.
I mean, I guess. What are you seeing for robin?
If it is a weak hive, they are gonna and there's an entrance, or if it's a weak hive and they have too many entrances. So I got a call from somebody that asked me to come out earlier in the season. They just got into beekeeping, and they sent a video, and it was robbing. Yeah. And down at the main entrance, no problem, but up at the top, they had an additional entrance up top, and evidently they weren't guarding it, or it wasn't a big enough colony to guard it. So it was getting robbed. So I told them, hey, just pull that entrance off because it was an inner cover, and throw the lid down and close it off. And it should stop the robbing, or at least move it to the front. The other thing you can do is that you can put sprinklers on them, but that only kind of sort of works.
Reduce the entrances.
Yeah, reduce the entrance.
I was trying to think of I've got entrance reducers on most of mine anyway, and I'm seeing some typical "hey, you don't belong here" action on landing boards and stuff, but nothing significant. Oh, the cutout honey that I left in buckets, it was all gone in the matter of probably 6 hours, in less than a day. So I dumped the buckets over on our sides, make sure everybody could get to the bottom of everything, and then toward the end of the day, it may have been the next morning, I went through and tried to dump everybody out and fish out any of the big chunky sections of comb and try to break them up in case there was any sections that were on top of each other, make sure that small hive beetle weren't moving in too quickly so everybody could get it all robbed out. I took some of the fatter pieces that still had some significant honey weight to them and just threw them in on top of the hive that I had dumped the rest of the bucket of bees in, so that they could specifically rob that out specifically for storage for them.
Yeah, they'll usually clean that up pretty quick.
But it's always surprising how quick that they'll do that.
Well, I'm gonna do the time lapse video again. So I did one a few years ago. You can find it online, but it's basically a time lapse of how fast will they go through a gallon of sugar water, and it's less than a half hour. It's maybe about 20 minutes to go through a gallon.
It's a lot of trips at 1/12 of teaspoon.
Yeah.
Fall splits. What are we doing? Fall splits? We doing any Palmer nukes? Palmer liked to do August splits for his 6/6s. Or sorry, 4/4s.
4/4s.
4/4s shared in a 10-frame box.
I have a hard time with requeening. Like, I could do a Palmer split if I had a mated queen right now. Yeah. But if I don't have a mated queen, their survivability to return is really low. And
we were pre-gaming about all of the dragonflies, and
dragonflies are out in mass right now,
and the praying mantis,
yeah,
and the golden garden spiders.
This is the first golden garden spider I've seen in years. Yeah, and I used to see them all the time as a kid. They're with their legs out. They're probably about as big as your palm. Yep. And they make webs that are probably 6 feet across. And they're really fascinating to see.
They have a really unique, identifiable, real thick zigzag web right in the middle.
Yeah.
That kind of like it spreads out to like an inch or two wide at the end and tapers down to almost a point in the middle, and then back out almost like an hourglass.
Yeah, they're really pretty. So there was one out in the field today. The one that was a little bit disconcerting was the praying mantis. That praying mantis was every bit as big as my hand, as long as my hand. And it was on the side of my hive. It was really excited. I was opening the hive. So I bopped it with my hive tool. Not mean, just bopped it in the head to be like, hey, go away. And it swiped the hive tool with its little praying mantis claw thing. Like, hey, no. Like, this is I am the predator here. Go away. And so I said, fine, I'll show you what you're getting into. So I popped the lid off, and a couple of guard bees go down the side, and one of them notices the praying mantis and goes after it. The praying mantis grabs it out of the air, bites its head off, and walks away with it.
There you go. Snacks.
Yep. Pet praying mantis. Now, I always see praying mantises near my hives, but I've never seen one this big. It was the biggest dang thing I've seen.
I've seen them on my hives. I don't know that I saw one that size before.
And then there was a snakeskin out at my front door. That's
a pretty good size one.
I'm in a neighborhood.
You're in a regular suburban neighborhood. I've got real property. I've got like creek and like 5 acres of woods, and I'll get little garter snakes and stuff. I like to see them around. They're working on crickets, and I don't know if they'll get big enough to take out a mice or a mole, but I'm always hoping that they'll work on that, because there's always something out there in the farm to be.
This one was plenty big enough. The skin was it's probably a 2 foot long skin.
Yep,
and it was plenty big enough to take out a mice.
Absolutely,
so
for sure.
My wife's a little worried about it. I'm a little worried that it's in. I've got a honey pickup box that's insulated on my front porch.
Unless it's chewed through the side. They don't do that.
It's got a nice little entrance for it.
Why would it have an entrance?
Because it doesn't have the box on the ground is just a beehive.
Oh, you mean it doesn't have a bottom?
Yeah. So,
I mean,
I was gonna wait.
I feel like he's hanging out in the mint, in the 2 foot tall mint patch in the back.
That's probably more
scaring
realistic.
up little critters that like to try to hide the mint patch.
We've had
bunnies.
We've had a strange lack of bunnies recently.
Well, I happen to know a theory where those might be.
Where they went. Now, it could be also in my little garden patch too that I've just let go to weeds this season.
Yeah.
So, but again, snakes not really worried. We don't have a lot of venomous snakes. It's not like we're in Australia.
No,
where everything's venomous.
Droning On is where we talk about what we're going to be doing for the next 2 weeks or so between now and our next episode, if we have one in 2 weeks. Hopefully we do. We apologize for having missed our last one. July 4th was busy. What are we doing? I'm going to be doing. I've got another round of oxalic acid treatments to do before I put Formic Pro on in September,
which is formic acid.
Yeah. So I'll put Formic Pro on when the temperatures cool off here. They've been awfully nice this past week, but
temperatures have been really nice. I'm going to I have Nora. I bought some Nora this year. I'm going to.
We talked about that last episode. If you don't know what that is, go back and listen to that.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw some of that on a couple of my hives as like a test, just to see how they do over winter with it. I have some untreated ones out here in my yard. So I was going to try it with that. And then I'll set up my lot B with some Palmer nukes. So I'm going to see how those overwinter in the woods.
Yeah.
And I'll be going through and pulling supers.
Speaking of hives and woods, I doing inspections. It'd been a hot minute since I was in one of my styrofoams, and I pulled the lid off, and girls had quarantined.
Oh,
yes. They had quarantined, I don't know, 20 small hive beetles up into this little corner of the top of the box of the hive. And I took that box off, and all these black dots just took off. I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let me get them. And man, I'm squishing and I'm pounding. I might have got it be here or there, but I was like, oh, I felt so bad because they had them all corralled up, or all nice and pretty in the top corner.
That's also in the same spot where there's a praying mantis. The smallest hive there had exactly that, and they'd pushed them all to the outside and they were guarding the inner cover, and they pushed them all out on top of the inner cover, and all the hive beetles were all clustered up, and I just took my hive tool and swiped it across the inner cover, and there's just a black bar of dead hive beetles.
And it's funny because they've been doing it for a while, because as soon as you see them, they'll get one will take off, and one of the girls who's been his job it is been guarding, she'll take off after it, oh no you don't.
Or when they're dead, I'd killed one, and it was still there, and I'd killed most of them, and there was one that was dead that was still there, and one went by and picked it up and then dropped it when she figured out it was dead, and another one came by and picked it up and dropped it when it was dead, and another one came by and grabbed it and stung, you saw the sting, stung the hell out of it, and then walked away all proud. And I was like, yeah, good job. Way to kill the dead hive beetle.
And then another one comes by and grabs it and is like, okay, we're going to get rid of this now.
Yeah.
I'm like, you do that.
Well, the one that stung it, I was like, oh, she'll get rid of it. No. It was not my job.
Yeah, the reason why I had the mental note is because he mentioned the hives in the shade, and the shade hives usually generate more for us in Central Illinois. The shade hives typically generate more small hive beetles than the ones in the sun.
50 hive beetles up here is a big deal.
Yeah.
I know further south, I've seen the videos of them.
That's nothing for them.
Moving along this bottom, the bottom of the hive moves. It's pretty rough. Here, 50, that's a bad hive beetle infestation.
And that was the other thing I noticed when I was doing my inspections. Call back to the start of the show was I was only seeing ones and twosies. I saw lids with nothing.
I saw onesies, twosies, and all inspections I did today when I was doing my Santa honey
drop-offs,
and there's just one that was smaller. Had, for whatever reason, they had a bunch and they'd corralled them all on the outside, and nothing inside the hive. Everything was just on the outside.
Yep. So they'll do it. What else are we doing in the next 2 weeks?
Just more getting ready for winter. I don't insulate as far as insulation goes. I don't really insulate my hives like we used to.
I got to find my wraps.
Yeah, I have a couple
wraps on.
I have a couple of wraps that I'll put on. I'll usually make some candy boards right now for my real weak ones that are real light, just to give them a fighting chance to get through winter. But usually I'm going through and checking weights and making sure everything's up to weight, and then
trying to get the yard cleaned up after. Just be throwing equipment out in the yard after being extracted or whatever, and piles of stuff everywhere, getting knocked over by the goats, and stuff that's gotten rotten from sitting around and not being used probably needs to go on the fall fire.
Yeah, I go through and I pull all of the boxes out of the apiary and then reorganize everything for spring.
Somebody came by my house and picked up a vac because he had a bunch of bees in the house. He was doing some cleaning in the honey shed.
I have so many. They're crawling underneath the door because they can smell honey. I had somebody come by and they wanted to extract. It was a student. They came by and they said, "Hey, can I extract? We have 9 frames to extract." And I was like, "All right. I've already cleaned up the equipment, but whatever. We can extract. I'll clean it up again."
2-frame extractor, and you set it outside when you're done, right?
Well, I used my 9-frame Maxent because you can just do it once. And so I left the wax in there, just the cappings, and I was tired, and I was like, I'll get to it later. And that was enough to bring. I had a waterfall of bees down. They crawl up the window, they hang onto each other, and then they waterfall down, and they crawl back up.
Crawl
and
back up. Yep.
So
that window does not open.
It does not. It was part of the original design to have it open, but I got talked out of it. Not a big deal. So we got a bee vac, and it takes care of it. But it also brings in flies this time of year.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
If you have any questions, you can find us down below at the various locations where you can leave us an email or other ways of getting in touch with us to leave us a question that we'll try to answer. If you have any products you want us to review, you can get a hold of us. And remember, every beekeeper needs a buddy. We hope you found one of yours right here.